following is the 2023-2024 Wrestling Rules presentation. It has been edited for distribution in Colorado by the Colorado Wrestling Officials Association. This year there are a total of 12 rule changes or additions. The next 3 slides address changes or additions that affect representation. Rule 1-4-3 now allows for a wrestler to wrestle in no more than 6 matches in any one day of competition. The previous limit had been 5 matches, with 6 allowed in the postseason only. In Rule 1-4-4, the minimum time between matches has been changed from 45 minutes to 30 minutes. It now states, no contestant shall wrestle in 2 consecutive matches with less than a 30-minute rest between matches. Even though Rule 1-4-3 allows for 6 matches in a day, Rule 1-4-7 has been added and states, no contestant shall wrestle in more than 10 matches in a 2 consecutive day period. A wrestler is not allowed to wrestle 12 matches in 2 consecutive days. The maximum number of matches allowed to be wrestled in 2 consecutive days is 10. Rule 3-1-1 addresses the referee and has been changed to allow for shoes with white or gray trim to be worn. Previously, the rule was specific in that shoes were to be without colored highlights. The next 2 slides address wrestlers' uniform and are specifically focused on tights. Rule 4-1-1A identifies legal tights as full-length form-fitted tights. There is no longer a requirement that tights must have stirrups. Again, there is no longer a requirement that tights must have stirrups. Also added to Rule 4-1-1B is the statement, compression shorts or shorts designed for wrestling may be worn with full-length form-fitted tights. This uniform combination had previously been identified as legal in the casebook, but was not identified as legal in the rules book. Wrestlers' appearance and health, specifically facial hair. Rule 4-2-1 has been edited now and states facial hair is permissible. There is no maximum length limit. All facial hair is permissible. And because all facial hair is permissible, reference to wearing a face mask if the facial hair requirement is not met has been removed from Rule 4-2-1. It is very possible the change to Rule 4-2-1 will not allow for a thorough skin inspection. Thus, the following reminder has been published. It is important to be cognizant about skin disease and keeping all involved safe. If there are any questionable areas on or around the face, the appropriate medical release form or input from the on-site appropriate healthcare professional is required. If there is no on-site appropriate healthcare professional and no medical release form, the wrestler will not be allowed to compete. Although this term was often used, medical forfeit has previously not been a scoring option. The rules book allowed for only a forfeit or a default to be scored. Added to Rule 5-13 is the statement, it shall be considered a medical forfeit when the opponent fails to appear for a match due to injury or illness that occurred during the tournament. The addition to Rule 5-13 requires that Rule 10-2-4 be edited so that medical forfeit is an option in situations where injury or illness occurs after verification of entries. Also, with the addition of medical forfeit, Rule 10-2-5 has been edited identifying a medical forfeit as not automatically eliminating a contestant from further competition in a tournament. The following change affects determination of inbounds, out of bounds. Rule 5-15-2A now lists foot or feet as being considered points of support when wrestling down on the mat. If the foot or feet are on the mat inside or on the boundary line, they are to be considered a supporting point in bounds. Previously, foot or feet were not considered supporting points when wrestling down on the mat. Down on the mat refers to wrestling action that occurs when both wrestlers are not on their feet. With foot or feet considered supporting points, it is possible for the total of 2 supporting points needed to be considered in bounds to be on one leg, e.g. left foot and left knee of the wrestler. However, in respect to fall or near fall when the defensive wrestler is out of bounds, the following clarification must be made. The determination of a fall or near fall being earned remains the same in that the offensive wrestler's knee or knees must be inside the boundary, whether in contact with or above the mat. If the defensive wrestler is out of bounds and the offensive wrestler has a foot or feet down on the mat inbounds, but the knee or knees of the offensive wrestler are outside the boundary line, a fall or near fall cannot be earned. The final rule change has to do with end of match procedure. It has evolved from COVID protocol and now allows the winner to be recognized by raising the winning wrestler's arm, the referee raising their arm with the colored wristband of the winning wrestler, or having the winning wrestler raise their own arm. The remaining slides identify NFHS and CWOA points of emphasis. They are as important as rule changes in that they have been specifically identified as issues requiring additional attention. Once again, uniform decorum in respect to the girls' uniform is being emphasized. It is imperative a uniform be issued to a student athlete that best fits their size, weight, and gender. With an increase of over 30,000 girls competing in wrestling last year, and even more expected to compete this year, girls being issued a boys' uniform is no longer practical or reasonable. Obviously, boys and girls have different anatomies and require different types of uniforms. It is highly recommended that girls be issued girls' cut uniforms. The design of the girls' cut uniform reduces the risk of exposure during wrestling competition. Additional emphasis is also being put on appropriate undergarments for girls competitors. We cannot expect a girl to perform her best if she must be concerned whether her uniform will support her while she is competing. A sports bra and suitable undergarment that completely covers the groin and buttocks are not just items of modern-day convenience. They are significant in high school wrestling because they are part of the uniform. Proper fit and sizing of the female uniform to minimize the risk of exposure should be considered for all positions that occur during wrestling action. Coaches and parents have a collaborative role in helping the wrestler to maintain their modesty by ensuring they wear proper fitting undergarments. Next, as shown in this play pic, what is becoming common occurrence? Excessive celebrations. This is simple and everyone should be able to understand the importance. Excessive celebration tarnishes a sport the athletes have dedicated themselves to. The goal is to treat everyone fairly and all with respect. Any actions, taunts, speech, or harassment that is insulting, demeaning, or hurtful will not and should not be tolerated. The next two slides refer to the addition of medical forfeit to the rules book and provide clarification as to the difference between default, forfeit, and medical forfeit. A default is awarded when a wrestler is unable to continue wrestling for any reason. It occurs only after the match has started. The opponent wins and the defaulting wrestler receives a loss. Again, a default occurs only after a match has started. A forfeit occurs when an opponent fails to appear for a match for any reason. The new rule change allows a medical forfeit to be an option. A medical forfeit is used when the forfeiting wrestler cannot wrestle due to an injury or illness that occurred during the tournament. The forfeiting wrestler remains in the tournament if appropriate and does not take a loss on their record. This entire transaction is determined by the tournament director after consultation with the on-site appropriate healthcare professional and the coach of the injured or ill contestant. Defaults and forfeits cease wrestling at different times for different reasons and have uniquely different consequences. The final NFHS point of emphasis addresses concealment of a communicable skin condition. With the new facial hair rule, paying attention to skin issues is more important than ever. Covering a communicable skin disease with makeup or other methods is in direct conflict with the rules of fairness and risk minimization. Concealing or hiding a communicable skin disease is unsporting behavior in violation of the NFHS communicable disease procedures and makes the wrestler ineligible to participate. The CWOA points of emphasis address areas identified as deficient within the state of Colorado. The first CWOA point of emphasis is bite identification. A bite is penalized as flagrant misconduct per NFHS Rule 5-12-2C. Because flagrant misconduct is the most severe penalty that can be imposed, it is imperative all officials follow the appropriate guidelines when determining if a bite occurred. The CWOA has developed the following guidelines to establish consistency. A wrestler will be penalized for biting if the official sees an actual bite occur and evidence of a bite is present, evidence being distinct top and bottom teeth marks on the skin of the opponent. A wrestler will be penalized for biting if the opponent immediately reacts if he or she was bit and evidence of a bite is present, evidence being distinct top and bottom teeth marks on the skin of the opponent. However, A wrestler will not be penalized for biting if the official does not see an actual bite occur or the opponent does not immediately react as if he or she was bit. Even if distinct top and bottom teeth marks on the skin do exist, but the official did not see a bite or the opponent did not react as if they were bit, a bite will not be called. It is possible, because of legal wrestling action, for distinct top and bottom teeth marks to be present without a bite having occurred. There are instances when a wrestler will show the official teeth marks on their skin during a break in wrestling action. Because the official did not see a bite occur, and the wrestler did not immediately react as if he or she was bit, a bite will not be called. The second CWOA point of emphasis is technical violation versus stalling. To clarify, it is stalling from the neutral position when a wrestler backs off the mat out of bounds or pushes or pulls the opponent out of bounds. It is a technical violation if a wrestler is intentionally going out of the wrestling area or forcing an opponent out of the wrestling area to avoid imminent scoring action. Stalling, as described, is appropriate only from the neutral position. If the defensive wrestler comes to his or her feet and the opponent pushes or pulls them off the mat, the appropriate penalty is not stalling. The appropriate penalty is a technical violation. When the defensive wrestler comes to his or her feet, it is to be considered an imminent scoring situation. Not attempting to stay on the mat so wrestling action can occur, stalling, is much different than leaving the wrestling area to avoid being scored on, technical violation. Do not penalize both scenarios as stalling. The CWA hopes this presentation will lessen misunderstanding and conflict associated with differing rules interpretations. Please forward all rules questions to Rob Ververs at mattratrob@comcast.net. Thank you for viewing the presentation and have a great wrestling season.